Deaf community and deaf culture. The establishment of a deaf community was designated to those that are born deaf or developed hearing problems early in life. Within our modern-day society, there is a sense of segregation between the hearing world and the non-hearing, in which a deaf community creates an inclusive, comforting, and reassuring feeling for those that are considered deaf. The deaf community is stated as a general network of people classified as deaf and hard of hearing individuals who share common languages, experiences, and communication styles. The deaf community reinforces the commonality between those of non-hearing, creating a strong sense of their identity and allowing deaf people to belong to a group of other people that share a common aspect of their lives together. A deaf community encompasses a range of people that have a direct link with deaf individuals, including hearing family and friends, social workers, and interpreters that have a daily relationship with non-hearing individuals. Culture. Within the deaf community, culture is present in making up a collection of individuals beyond the general characterization of being deaf. Furthermore, culture is a way of life, the values, traditions, and beliefs held by individuals from a particular geographical area. Beginning with language, sign language is the main type of communication used within the community. Sign language is very versatile in the sense that each country and culture around the world has their own way of communicating through it. Within specific geographical regions, deaf people have different ways of greeting each other in comparison to people from other regions. Values. Values within the deaf community include the importance of heritage, deaf literature, socialization, and deaf art. For example, deaf art can be created to express deaf experiences in which individuals can relate to. Also, because there is generally a smaller population of deaf people, being social and finding deaf friends is highly valued within the culture. Who belongs to the deaf community? Individuals that belong to the deaf community are those that were born with or developed severe and profound hearing losses. Majority of the people that are integrated in the deaf community fall under the above category. However, the deaf community also allows access to those who are proficient and fluent in sign language, in which any other hearing individual is embraced within the deaf community if they are able to use sign language. A predominant factor that determines access is the individual has to be conscious towards the nature of the culture present within the deaf community, including self-identity, language, values, traditions, and behavioral norms. Most deaf individuals have hearing family and friends, in which are incorporated within the deaf community so they are able to be part of the non-hearing world and gain a broader understanding of what they experience. Those that don't belong to the deaf community include any other persons that don't come under the above category. What is the size of the deaf community? In 2012, the World Health Organization reported that there are 360 million people worldwide with disabling hearing loss. 328 million of these are adults, and 32 million of these are children. Hearing loss may result from genetic causes, complications at birth, certain infectious diseases, chronic ear infections, the use of particular drugs, exposure to excessive noise, and aging. The majority of people with disabling hearing loss live in low and middle income countries. Prevention. Disabling hearing loss can be prevented through public health measures such as immunization, reducing occupational and recreational exposure to noise, and following healthy ear care practices. A approximately 1/3 of the people over 65 years of age are affected by disabling hearing loss. The prevalence in this age group is greatest in South Asia, Asia Pacific, and Sub-Saharan Africa. To develop an analysis of the impact of quality of life of people living in the deaf community, two individuals will be compared. When comparing and contrasting the lived experiences of a person who is part of the deaf community, it is evident that the lived experience of people with deafness can be vastly different. Joe has Usher syndrome, a genetic condition which means he has had profound hearing loss in both ears since birth. However, Joe would never let his hearing keep him from not living life to its fullest. He has a wife and 2 children. His wife is also profoundly deaf, however their children are both fully living. Joe has also worked within a government department for over 20 years as a full-time employee. Since retiring, Joe has become a spokesperson for Able Australia and has been to numerous public events speaking on behalf of the organisation, advocating for the deaf community. Due to his condition, Joe was unable to drive a car, so instead he went out looking for a bicycle. However, due to his deafness, he has very poor balance and found it near impossible to ride a bicycle safely. A solution was to get himself a tricycle, 3 wheels so no balance issues, and he can now have the independence to ride himself to and from activities, to the shops and anywhere else he wishes. Joe doesn't let his deafness stop him from enjoying his favourite sports, being a massive fan of the Sydney Swans and Melbourne Storm. He also loves going to the Formula One Grand Prix every year because he can feel the vibrations of the cars as they go past and experience the magnitude of their power and speed, even though he can't hear the roar of the engines. Joe also doesn't let his condition allow him from being an active participant in the lives of his children, who are both adults in their early 20s now. Joe even attended the high school performance where his daughter sang, and when asked his thoughts on the night, said that even though he couldn't hear her voice, he knew she must have sounded beautiful because everyone was standing and applauding her at the end of her performance. Joe's experience is contrasted with that of Felix, a young boy who was also found to be profoundly deaf short after birth. His mother, who remarked after being told of the news, "I sat in my car and cried. Don't let anything be wrong with him. Please, it is not fair for him." But for Felix, unlike Joe, he had the possibility for cochlear implants as the technology wasn't developed when Joe was young. And at 5 months of age, Felix became one of the youngest simultaneous bilateral implantees in Australia. The cochlear implants had given him the chance to catch up to his peers in language and speech development. Now 2 years and 4 months old, Felix loves to sing and play piano and dance around the house with his little sister. Felix's experiences prove the point that the lived experience of someone with profound deafness will not always be the same as another. Felix, who can now hear with the aid of cochlear implants, can experience things that Joe, who has never known a life other than that of profound deafness, will never know. Differences. Joe has had to overcome the acceptance that he cannot do everything that those who can hear can do. Felix has incurred language lessons to ensure he is at the same academic level as other children his age. Felix throughout his life will most likely not have to adapt his life and differ from those who do not have cochlear implants. Similarities. Both Joe and Felix lost their hearing at the time of their birth, but took opposite directions in living life with this hearing loss. Despite his profound deafness, Joe is able to maintain a social life, highlighted by his relationship with his wife and kids, and was successful in his career within the government and currently at Able Australia. Felix will also be able to maintain a high quality of social life in respect to his other classmates. Deafness is not a barrier for succeeding in all aspects of life, but rather with treatments such as cochlear implants or without, in both cases, the individual showed successful integration in their environments through achieving good grades at school, gaining employment, and being active and present in the lives of their family.